Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and I am your host, Jesse Tapia. So, what I have planned for today's show, we're going to go look at a few divisions and talk about each of them. We'll talk about the NL West, I'll talk about the AL East, and the title is a bit misleading, given its close division races. Some of them aren't really close anymore. I'd say it's just the NL Central, the NL West, and maybe the NL or the AL West is close. But of course, I mean, the AL West doesn't seem that close. I feel pretty comfortable saying the A's won't be taking the division crown there. And the Cubs have created some separation between them and the Brewers. Again, it's only 2.5 games, but nonetheless, they did create separation. I'd say the only division I'm kind of about is the NL West, where, I mean, we talked on Friday, and I still stand by it. Dodgers are the most overrated team in the last 15 years. Either way, they still could win the division here, and I will say this, even if they win the division, it's all for nothing if they don't win a World Series. That's the way things go, and that's the way things are. But either way, we'll talk AL East, we will talk NL West, and AL West. But I also want to talk about these scores over the weekend, so let's do that first. So you look at it, I mean, a lot of big series happening over the weekend, a lot of series where, I mean, there was a lot of implications. You look at Friday, September 14th. You had the Chicago White Sox starting up a series with the Baltimore Orioles. Neither of these teams really, I mean, are good. Baltimore's lost 105 games. The White Sox have lost 89. And on Friday, you had the White Sox winning that one 8-6, with James Shields picking up the win there. Then you had the Yankees and Blue Jays starting up a series in New York. Yankees obviously want to create a distance between them and the A's for that top wild card spot in the AL. The Yankees did well. Aaron Judge, like I said, returned in that game. Didn't play, but was activated off the DL. I mean, Aaron Boone said at a press conference that he won't be hitting until there's no discomfort in his wrist as he's hitting, which is smart. I don't get why you'd have him run bases. And he also said that you could see him in defensive situations. They're talking about Aaron Judge. But anyway, on Friday, you had Masahiro Tanaka pitching, and Tanaka ended up getting the win here. Yankees won that one 11-0. Moving on. Phillies and the Marlins are playing each other. I mean, Phillies seemed like they were in it for the most part. Talking about the race for the NL East. And then, of course, fell off. But on Friday, they did beat the Marlins 14-2. Marlins have had a terrible season. They've had 90 losses, only 57 wins. Derek Jeter better be right as far as his rebuild, because if not, I mean, this team was set back so far. The Red Sox and Mets started up a series on Friday. Also, you had Noah Syndergaard pitching against Cuevas of the Boston Red Sox. Syndergaard was dominant. I mean, only 3 hits given up. Pitched 7 innings. Red Sox had no answer whatsoever. Finished the game with 4 hits but 0 runs. Mets, like I said, won this one 8-0. And if the Mets had hitters and players who just weren't on the DL, they'd be a decent team. Tigers played the Indians. I mean, the Indians have never really had to look over their shoulder as far as this season in their division. But did end up losing this one to the Tigers 5-4. Obviously, for the Indians, I mean, it doesn't really matter. And the Indians are a bit overrated, I'd say. They're only 82-65. I mean, the A's are currently 90-58. I get divisions matter, but isn't it odd how we're going to have a team with a better record in the wild card game and a team with a worse record winning their division, playing in the ALDS already. I don't know. And speaking of the A's, they started up a series with the Tampa Bay Rays. The A's obviously needed to take a few games in this series over the weekend just to catch up to the Yankees. The A's started doing that well on Friday, winning that game in 10 innings, 2-1. Chris Davis hit his 42nd homer of the season, hit it in the 10th, and that guy's been ridiculous. Don't think he won MVP or anything like that, but has been a very good player for that team. You look at the Nationals and Braves. Ronald Acuna went 4 of 5 in that game, 2 RBIs, and the Braves won that one 10-5. Nationals are going to be a terrible team going forward after this offseason, just given, we all know Bryce Harper will no longer be with that team. Dodgers, after hearing the episode of me talking about how overrated they've been, ended up taking the win there against the Cardinals in St. Louis, won that game 3-0. Cardinals only got 2 hits in that one. Dodgers, basically put on a clinic. Then you had the Reds and Cubs playing. Cubs took care of business, won that one 3-2. Brewers faced off with the Pirates. Chris Archer with yet again another loss, pitching for the Pirates. He's been 1-3 with a 5.49 ERA since he's gotten to Pittsburgh. Brewers, like I said, won that one 7-4. Diamondbacks beat the Astros 4-2. Obviously a big win for the Diamondbacks there. They've kind of lost ground in the NL West, so that helped on that day. Twins-Royals. Royals won that one 8-4. You had Jason Hamill winning that one for the Royals. Royals have lost 96 games. The Twins have lost 80. Then you had the Mariners and Angels playing. Mariners won that one 5-0 there. Neither team really in contention for a playoff spot. Rangers beat the Padres 4-0, and then you had the Rockies starting up what should have been an easy series for them against the Giants, and the Giants only gave up 2 hits to the Rockies. You had Stratton pitching there, pitched the complete game, and the Giants won that one 2-0. Moving on to Saturday's games. The 15th, you had the Nationals winning Game 2 of their series with the Braves winning that one 7-1. Dodgers beat up on the Cardinals 17-4. Yasiel Puig hit 3 home runs in that game. Puig is your friend. Yasiel Puig is one of my favorite players in the MLB. Again, a lot of his antics are pretty frowned upon, and people don't tend to like him too much. But either way, like I said, favorite player of mine, and the Dodgers won that one 17-4. Then you had the Indians absolutely beating up on the Tigers. Indians won that one 15-0. Those teams in the AL Central have got to pick it up next season. It's ridiculous how bad 4 of those teams are. Yankees lost to the Blue Jays 8-7. CC Sabathia with the loss there. Obviously not a good loss by the Yankees. There's no such thing as a good loss. But they shouldn't be dropping games to Toronto here. Red Sox beat the Mets 5-3. Bullpen did well to hold the lead. Rick Porcello came away with the win there. Cubs beat the Reds 1-0. John Lester with the win. And, the Cubs are going to be a hard out in the playoffs. I don't understand how you could really pick anyone else in that NL to beat them. You had the A's losing to the Rays on Saturday 7-5. Again, this would have been a good opportunity for the A's to take a jump over the Yankees in that NL or the AL wildcard spot, the top spot for that matter. The A's had the ability, but ended up dropping their last 2 games against the Rays. Again, they lost Saturday's game 7-5. White Sox beat the Orioles 2-0 there. No one really cares about those 2 teams. Phillies beat the Marlins 5-4. Little too late for the Phillies. Pirates ended up beating the Brewers on Saturday 3-1. You had the Astros beating the Diamondbacks 10-4. Royals beat the Twins 10-3. Rangers beat the Padres 6-3. You had the Giants beating the Rockies 3-0 with Madison Bumgarner getting the win for the Giants there. And then the Mariners beating the Angels 6-5. And as for Sunday's games, taking a look at it, Sunday the 16th, you had the Orioles beating the White Sox 8-4. Orioles ended up taking that series. Red Sox beat the Mets 4-3. Brandon Workman with the win there. Stephen Wright with the save. And I think Brandon Wright could not be not going to be the answer to the Red Sox bullpen problems, but will be some duct tape on a leak for them. So it's not going to fix it all, but can limit it a bit. We're talking about the bullpen issues. Blue Jays beat the Yankees 3-2. Obviously not a great game by the Yankees there. Dylan Betances coming in and giving up 2 runs in the 8th. Tigers beat the Indians 6-4. I mean, I'm not sure the Indians are too worried about it. They ended up clinching their division over the weekend. Rays beat the A's 5-4. You had the Nationals beating the Braves 6-4. Marlins beat the Phillies 6-4. Pirates beat the Brewers 3-2. Astros beat the Diamondbacks 5-4. Twins beat the Royals 9-6. You had the Reds beating the Cubs 2-1. Rockies beating the Giants 3-2. You had the Angels beating the Mariners 4-3. Padres beat the Rangers 7-3. And then Cardinals beat the Dodgers 5-0. Looking at the games going on tonight before we wrap up this first segment, you got the Blue Jays and Orioles playing, Mets Phillies, Royals Pirates, Twins Tigers, Nationals Marlins, Cardinals Braves, Reds Brewers, Rays Rangers, Mariners Astros, Cubs Diamondbacks, Rockies Dodgers. That's a very important series starting up tonight. And then Giants Padres. So that's what it's looking like right now. We'll not update the MLB standings right now, given we're going to talk about each or some divisions coming up and for the rest of the 3 segments. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
The average sedan is built with a steel frame and equipped with 6 airbags. Remember this the next time you see someone walking. Drivers, be aware. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety. The average SUV has 2 blind spots, weighs between 4,000 and 6,000 pounds, and takes about 6 seconds to stop. Remember this the next time you're on foot. Pay attention, people. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Spent that first segment recapping these scores from Friday through Sunday, and then took a look at the games happening on Monday. Either way, we move on from that, and for the rest of the show, we will be talking about some of the divisions. And again, title was a bit misleading. I mean, we will talk about a couple of close divisions, but either way, I want to start out for this segment with the AL East. So Boston, as we know, I mean, I don't really think they have hit a slump at all this season. I mean, you look at it, they're 103-47. They've won 7 out of the They're 7-3 in their last 10, won 2 in a row, and have an opportunity to win their 3rd straight division title. But they have that opportunity to win that title in New York. And let's take a look at Boston's remaining schedule. So taking a look at it, they just finished up a series where they won 2 out of 3 against the Mets. And looking at what they got coming up, they're in New York for 3 games, then in Cleveland for 3 games. I think this will be a good idea or a good time for the Red Sox to basically see where they're at amongst the top teams in the AL. Cleveland's only 82. They've only got 82 wins so far this season. So, again, I thought we were maybe sleeping on them a bit. But, I mean, that whole AL Central is just completely terrible. If you look at the Yankees have just never, really put it together this season. I feel like there was always a problem week in and week out with them. I mean, obviously, they have, the 3rd best record in the majors right now? Somewhere around there. And it's just something that seemed off with them, like I said. So like I said, Boston's in New York for 3 games, then in for Cleveland. I mean, if Boston were to win the division in New York, I think that would be best just for me, given I could talk about it on Friday, because obviously it's a story, and also for the national media. But, I mean, winning it in Cleveland, I'm sure they wouldn't care about that either. And I know they probably want to get it wrapped up as soon as possible. I mean, I don't think I did. Mookie Betts left one of the Mets games with an injury. He says he's okay, and the Red Sox really got to play it safe with these last couple of weeks. I mean, if that means not playing Mookie for the next couple of series, at least this one, then you do it. I mean, I don't see the Yankees making this miraculous comeback where they make up an 11.5 game deficit. And looking at how many games the Red Sox got left, they got 6 they got 6 upcoming, then 7, 8, 9. So the Red Sox got about 12 games left. I'd say if the Red Sox were to take 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, then the division's wrapped up there. And it is possible. Let me see if I can find out who the Red Sox have going up against New York this upcoming series. I mean, I think there's a possibility. Actually, no, we had Chris Sale pitch the other day, I believe. So looking at it, for Tuesday's game, you have Nathan Eovaldi going up against J.A. Happ. This is going to be a difficult one for Boston to win, given J.A. Happ's played well. Pitched well, I should say. Let's see, for Wednesday, I believe we got David Price. Yeah, you got David Price pitching against Luis Severino. David Price has been a monster since the All-Star break. And then on Thursday, you have Eduardo Rodriguez pitching against Tanaka. I'd assume if the Red Sox were going to take 2 games in this series, it would have to be the games David Price and Eduardo Rodriguez are pitching. I don't necessarily trust Nathan Eovaldi to get the job done for the Red Sox. And they're going to have the Yankees remaining schedule because obviously they are in a tight NL or AL wildcard race. They, to finish out the season, have obviously 3 games against Boston at home, 3 games against Baltimore after that at home. Then they got 4 in Tampa and 3 in Boston. I think the A's are going to end up playing that wildcard game in Oakland, just given how difficult the Yankee schedule is to finish off the season, how easy the A's schedule is. But either way, I mean, you look at this division currently, the AL East, this was a division that at one point in time was extremely close. This wasn't something that was this far off to start with. And I mean, if you look at the Yankees, a lot of their problems have come on the road. And if they win a lot more of those road games than they've lost, then they're right up there with the Red Sox. And the Yankees, I mean, do have the talent to be up there. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, they were neck and neck for a lot of the season. And then I think just post All-Star break is when they just officially fell off. But, I mean, either way, I think we can go ahead and say that Boston's going to end up winning this division. I don't think we need to continue acting like as if it's something close. I mean, the Yankees at one point a few weeks ago were 6.5 games back. But like I said, eventually just started falling off a bit. And I mean, you look at Aaron Judge, like I said, they don't necessarily need to bring him back for the rest of the season. I don't see a reason to. I mean, if you are a better team than Oakland, then you will beat them in Oakland. And as far as the Red Sox go, I'd say there's more pressure on them to win the World Series than any other team in the MLB. And you ask why maybe I say that. Well, I mean, look at how well they've played this season. Look at their win-loss record. Look at the fact that they have 2 MVP candidates on that team. Look at the fact that they've had probably the best lineup in all of baseball, statistically speaking. Look at the fact that David Price has looked like the David Price of old after the All-Star break. I mean, Chris Sale could very well win the Cy Young. So there's really no excuses with this team currently finishing off the season. You look at the Yankees, I don't think anyone's really going to sweat the Yankees not winning the World Series this year. Like I've said, you know the Yankees are going to be good for the next 8 seasons. The A's, I mean, their fans should just be happy with the fact that they got a competitive team. All this winning, I'd say, is a plus. You look at the Astros, I don't really see pressure being put on them. I mean, maybe they put the pressure on themselves, but either way, I mean, they just won the World Series last year. NL, Cubs are recent World Series champs. The NL West, I don't think anyone's really expecting much out of there. No one's expecting the Braves to go out and win anything. And the Brewers just got good. And the Cardinals, I mean, should be happy about the fact that, I mean, they were terrible. With Matheny, they fire him, hire their interim coach full-time to be their full-time head coach, and now they're playing well. I'd say, yeah, definitely all the pressure currently sits with Boston. And we talked about Steven Wright, mentioned him. I mean, he could. I don't think he's the answer to their bullpen struggles, but he could help patch up a lot of the problems there. And it is going to be tough for Boston to get through the playoffs, and I don't know why. we haven't talked enough about it, meaning the national media. And I'm not considering myself as the national media. But, like I said, this team needs to do better as far as the guys coming out the bullpen. We'll see if it ends up happening. But I'd say right now they're more so focused on winning the division. It seems like Boston has taken a step-by-step approach. 1 being make the playoffs, 2 being win the division, and then winning your series as the postseason goes on. And I think we are heading towards a Astros and Red Sox ALCS. And I'm sure Boston wants revenge from Houston. Given, I think Houston ended up sweeping them last year. And Houston was just absolutely terrifying for all teams in that postseason. Except for the Dodgers. The Dodgers did force it to 7 games. And that was one of the most exciting World Series also. The Dodgers and Astros recent World Series. Like, I give the Dodgers a lot of grief for being overrated and constantly falling up short. But, I mean, you had Kershaw finally performing well in the postseason. I mean, they were hitting the ball to no end. Same with the Astros. I mean, that was probably the funnest World Series I've ever watched. Most entertaining. I mean, each game had something. Home runs, pitching, everything. And it's just the Astros just did just about enough to get it done. But either way, I think I'm good with wrapping up this segment here. Like I said, Red Sox currently 11.5 up on the Yankees. Most likely will be winning the division in New York. I mean, if they're able to take 2 out of 3 there. It will be tough, though, given they got Severino going up against Severino on Wednesday, Tanaka on Thursday. And this is probably the best 1-2-3 punch that the Yankees could offer, given you got Happ tomorrow, Severino Wednesday, and like I said, Tanaka on Thursday. But we'll see what ends up happening. Maybe David Price can take a win on Wednesday, and then you get Eduardo Rodriguez giving a decent performance on Thursday to help him get the win there. And of course, if that doesn't happen, then you can win it in Cleveland. But like I said, I think it's safe to say this AL East wildcard or AL East divisional race is over actually. So we'll wrap it up here. Next up, we will be talking NL West. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
The average sedan is built with a steel frame and equipped with 6 airbags. Remember this the next time you see someone walking. Drivers, be aware. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. So far today, that first segment, I recapped the games over the weekend. Second segment talked about the Red Sox and Yankees. Now we move on, and the Rockies and Dodgers are basically starting a series where I guess whoever comes out on top of the division after the series, I will be picking to win the division to finish out the rest of the season. I mean, why not, right? Isn't it that how we do things now? I mean, hot takes galore out here. Let's take a look at who each team has to finish out their season. In Dodgers, I mean, they need to win this division. You can't trade for Manny Machado and not win your division. It just doesn't happen that way. You trade for Manny Machado, that means you're trying to win a World Series. So looking at it, they got 3 games with Colorado, 3 games with San Diego, 3 games in Arizona, and 3 games in San Francisco. You don't think the Giants would be trying to play spoiler there and try to keep the Dodgers out of the postseason? And that's a possibility given. I'm still pretty set on the Brewers and Cardinals making those 2 wildcard spots. And looking at it, I mean, again, I think it's all for nothing if they don't win this series against the Rockies. I think that's a must right there. And I'm not sure if they will. I mean, the Dodgers did well against the Cardinals, which impressed me. The Rockies didn't do so hot against the Giants. So now it's just a matter of, I mean, who's riding the hot hand here? And the Dodgers do have 6 games against very tough teams, 3 being the Rockies and 3 being against the Diamondbacks in Arizona. And like I said, I mean, yeah, San Francisco has been really bad this season, but you don't think they're going to be awake and ready to go when it comes to those last 3 games against the Dodgers? I mean, it'll be interesting. And let's take a look at what the Rockies got to finish out their season. Rockies, like I said, should have done better against the Giants this past weekend in their series. I mean, dropping 2 out of 3. And the Rockies' bats just didn't wake up. It was one where, I mean, the Giants' pitching is what won them that series. Somehow, some way, though, Colorado managed to stay a half game up above the Dodgers. And looking at the Rockies' remaining schedule, let's see, who do they got to finish off? For the last couple of weeks, actually, it's not that difficult. I mean, they got 3 games in Los Angeles, 3 games in Arizona, but then you're playing 4 games at home against Philly, and 3 games at home against Washington. I'd say Philly is pretty much all but packed it up, and they're ready to go home. Washington, I mean, they're basically preparing for life without Bryce Harper. I got to go with the Rockies winning this division. As much as the Dodgers need to and as much as they should, again, it all comes down to schedules to wrap it up. And that's why I think the A's are going to be taking the top wildcard spot against the Yankees. And why the Rockies, I think, are going to win their division. I mean, we all know the Rockies are a good baseball team. They kind of go against my theory of good teams don't have a bad run differential, or teams with a bad run differential are frauds, meaning if you're negative or near there. The Rockies are near there. But, like I said, they fall under the exception. And as far as teams who had bad run differentials and teams I pretty much wrote off, those teams would be the Seattle Mariners. I mean, months ago, I never really thought they were for real. I mean, when you're teetering around -10 run differential and about even at that time, a couple months ago, no one was really taking them seriously. At least I wasn't. You look at the Phillies. Right now, they got a -9 run differential. Wasn't really expecting them to do much. Cardinals, they got a +69 run differential. The Milwaukee's +47. You look at the Rockies, their run differential was +1. Not necessarily great by any means. The Rockies are 5-5 in their last 10, and let's see, what is this little... As far as ESPN's percent that they're giving them to make the playoffs, the percent of the chance, they got the Rockies at 59%, the Dodgers at 85%. Obviously, ESPN has some type of algorithm where it favors the Dodgers going forward for the rest of the season. And I'm not saying where it's biased towards the Dodgers, where it somehow thinks that the Dodgers' rest of their schedule is easy enough to where they'll take over. And I don't understand that. I feel like the Dodgers have a tougher schedule than the Rockies. I mean, yes, the Dodgers, like I said, finish out against the Giants, but the Giants are going to play them well. I'd say the Nationals and Phillies are a bit overhyped, and I'd say done at this point. I think they've pretty much phoned it in. Phillies are 3-7 in the last 10. Nationals, I will give them credit, are 7-3 in their last 10. And ESPN, as far as the percent of them making the playoffs, ESPN's got them at 0.1%. And one day, I think, we'll see a team that ends up making the playoffs with those kind of odds late in the season. I mean, we've never seen it, at least I haven't, but I think eventually we will. Some team with a 0.1% chance to make the playoffs will somehow get in. And I mean, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a team going on some crazy losing streak or whatnot, but I mean, there's been stuff that has happened in the world of sports that you figured years ago that would never happen. And I'm not going to go and name things just mainly because I got to think. And I don't feel like thinking right now. But either way, like I said, I mean, this series is pretty much, this is pivotal right here. And let's take a look at who the Dodgers got pitching in each game and who the Rockies got pitching in each game. Because, I mean, pitching is going to play a big part here. And the game is on at 7 o'clock tonight. You got John Gray going against Hyun Jin Ryu of the Dodgers. And again, the series is taking place in LA. As for Tuesday, taking a look at that. We had a couple of good games going on for Tuesday, too. We have Kyle Freeland, who has an ERA under 3, going up against Kyle Kershaw, who also has an ERA under 3. I mean, as far as the pitching matchups, I'd say the first 2 favor the Dodgers. And as for Wednesday, the final game of the series, looking at who you got pitching there, you have Tyler Anderson going up against Walker Buehler. Is it Buehler or is it Buehler? I think it's Buehler. Either way, Buehler's got an under 3 ERA, a sub 3 ERA. And Anderson is closer to 5 than he is to 4. Obviously, closer to 5 than he is to 3. Obviously, that's not necessarily great. And that game will be on ESPN at 7 o'clock. Let's see. And then they'll also have the Red Sox and Yankees game on at 7. So nice little doubleheader there. You'll have David Price going up against Luis Severino. And also, Rockies-Dodgers is a series that obviously will shape out who ends up taking the division. Well, not taking the division, but leading the division after this series. And like I said, we talked about the Dodgers being overrated on on Friday, and I still firmly believe that. If you're a team who's got one of the highest payrolls in baseball, and you're constantly bringing in multiple top players, and you're not winning World Series, that's a problem. The Dodgers haven't won it since '88. How does that happen? You got the Red Sox who won in 2004, 2007, 2013. Yankees last one they won was 2009. And I guess maybe the high payroll, teams with the high payroll is getting kind of played out here. Maybe that's not the way to go about things. And it might not be. Okay, because you see teams like the A's, and you look at the A's. The A's, have one of the lowest payrolls in baseball, but how often are the A's competitive? I guess I will give the Dodgers credit here. There isn't a season that really goes by where you're expecting them to be one of the worst teams in baseball. Like the Giants don't necessarily have a high payroll or anything like that. But, the Dodgers have won World Series back in 10, 12, and 14. So I guess it's just a matter of development, coaching, and things going your way. Because, in baseball, you can't really predict what's going on. Baseball is that one sport where it doesn't matter how good one team is. Like, you get the NFL, you could have the New England Patriots playing against the, Buffalo Bills, who are best team in football versus the worst team in football. And this is usually, obviously, things are a bit different now. But either way, you'd figure, yes, the Patriots are going to win that game easily. You could have the Red Sox going up against the Orioles. And yeah, you'd expect the Red Sox to win that series, as they probably would. But would you be surprised by a sweep? Of course not. Why? Because it's baseball. So again, having a high payroll doesn't always amount to World Series or anything like that. The Giants have showed it. The Cubs have showed that, you bring in top players, they can get it done. So like I said, I think it's just a matter of coaching and things falling your way. But, as far as the NL West goes, I'm still picking the Rockies to win that division. I think their end of the schedule is way easier than the Dodgers. Again, the Dodgers got to play the Rockies, Diamondbacks, and Giants. Giants aren't great, but, they always play the Dodgers tough. So we'll see what ends up happening. Next segment, we'll be talking about anything else going on in the world of baseball. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
The average SUV has 2 blind spots, weighs between 4,000 and 6,000 pounds, and takes about 6 seconds to stop. Remember this the next time you're on foot. Pay attention, people. Pedestrians don't have armor. A message from the California Office of Traffic Safety.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. So far today, we recapped this weekend's games in the MLB, gave the scores and stats of all that. Second segment, we talked AL East. Third segment, we talked NL West. Now we talk about pretty much anything else in the baseball world. Looking at the NL Central, mainly looking at the Cubs. They're obviously the number one team in the NL. And, I'm sure are going to be a lot of people's picks to make the World Series. But who do you see as a team in the NL who could maybe get past them and make it to the World Series? Last year, it was the Dodgers who ended up playing the Astros like we talked about. One of the funner, more entertaining World Series I've ever watched. Might be the most entertaining I've ever watched. But looking at it, obviously the Brewers or Cardinals are going to have a shot given one of them is going to lose in the wild card game. And maybe I mean, I see the Brewers winning that wild card game if they do go up against the Cardinals. I think the Brewers have just been the better team all season long. And you look at the NL East, do you really see the Braves being a team who could make it to a World Series? I mean, looking at them, they've actually been much better on the road than they have at home. Looking at the Braves' road record, they're 45-30. Looking at their home record, they're 38-36. I mean, they're 7-3 in their last 10 at a plus 100 run differential. Maybe the Braves can use their success on the road to get them through the postseason. Possibly. Looking at the NL West, I mean, that's a little tougher to predict just given we're not sure who's going to win that division. I mean, I don't think the Dodgers have really been good enough to convince me that, yeah, they're on the level of a Chicago or a Milwaukee for that matter. I mean, I'd say that Colorado's honestly looked better than LA this season. And again, I mean, for the most part this season, it was the Dodgers and Diamondbacks basically trading back and forth as to who was leading that division. And then the Rockies basically towards the end of the season pretty much inserted themselves and said, nope, what about us? And they've done well. I mean, looking at them, they're 41-33 at home, 41-34 on the road. The Dodgers are kind of like the Braves in the sense where they haven't necessarily done too well at home, but have been very solid on the road. I mean, the Dodgers at home, 39-36, 43-32 on the road. 2 games worse than the Braves on the road there. And I'd say, actually, you know what? The Braves might have the best road record in the league. Actually, no, I'm sure Boston's road record is much better, and it is. They're 49-26. And actually, no. The Astros actually have the best road record at 52-22. Then it's the Red Sox in second and the Braves in third. As far as home records, Boston is 54-21. That might be the best right there. You got the Yankees who are 49-26. The Rays actually 48-26 also. The Rays, if they were a better road team, they'd be right there in the wild card race. I mean, they're 34-40. You give them a record like the Yankees on the road. I mean, they're like I said, they're right there with Oakland and the Yankees there. A's are 46-29 at home. I mean, that's kind of impressive just considering the fact that the A's really haven't had any fans at home. And I mean, we'll see if they start showing up, but either way, it's been a bit of a problem this season. Let's see. Philly's 45-30 at home. Chicago's 47-27 at home. So yeah, no one really comes close to Boston as far as their home record. Them being 54-21. They're the only team, I think, currently with more than 50 wins on the at home. Let's see. Yankees come close. They're 1 win away from that. The Rays are 2. The A's are 4. Cubs are 3. And then you get the Brewers at 4 also. But yeah, I mean, as of right now, I mean, can you definitely say, yeah, this team could definitely dethrone the Cubs here in the NL and get past them into the World Series? Because I think I feel pretty comfortable saying that the Cubs will be in the NLCS. And let's go ahead and make my predictions, I guess, for the NLCS and ALCS. ALCS, I feel pretty comfortable saying it's going to be Boston versus Houston. I don't see the Indians really coming close to Houston in that ALDS. I mean, Cleveland, you look at them, they're currently 83-66. That's good for the 5th best record in the AL. 1 game ahead of the Rays, who are 20 games back of the Red Sox. And, I mean, I think the A's, if they do end up playing that wild card game at home, will end up winning that game. And I don't see them really having the firepower to compete with a Red Sox team in the ALDS. I mean, the only way the A's would be able to get past them is just if the bullpen was dominant enough where they just completely put the Red Sox bats to sleep from the 6th inning and on. But even then, so can you trust the A's starting pitching to, I mean, keep it close until you need the bullpen out there? I'm not so sure about that. And as far as the Yankees go, I just don't think they're just good enough to compete with Boston as far as a 7-game. Well, it would be a 5-game series, yeah, actually. So, I mean, anything could happen there. But, I mean, yeah, I like Boston and Houston in the ALCS. Then you look at the NL. I'm assuming we'll get the Brewers and Cardinals playing in the wild card game, and I'm assuming that's a game the Brewers win. And I think if the Brewers were to beat the Cubs in the NLDS, that's who would make it to the World Series out in the NL. But and I kind of do want to pick the Brewers, actually. But I'm going to stick with the Cubs. I'm going to say the Cubs go to the NLCS, and that means they play the winner of the Braves and I'm assuming Dodgers or Rockies NLDS. And looking at it, let's say that the Rockies end up winning the NLDS, or not winning the division, and they play the Braves. I could see the Rockies playing the Cubs in the NLCS, but I don't see them beating the Cubs. Maybe the Dodgers. I mean, I'd be all for a Dodgers-Cubs NLCS. I think, is that what we got last season? It might have been. I can't remember exactly. But either way, I mean, I could go for a Dodgers-Cubs NLCS, Astros, Red Sox. I mean, the World Series, I want to see. And I think maybe the average baseball fan, and I could be wrong. I'm not sure how in touch I am with the average baseball fan, but is the Cubs versus the Red Sox. I mean, Red Sox who went 80-plus years without a World Series. The Cubs who went 100-plus. I mean, Theo Epstein, former general manager of the Red Sox, current general manager of the Cubs. And I'd say some great historic teams there. Yankees-Cubs would be a fun one also. I feel like Yankees-Dodgers would be like, not anymore because the Yankees aren't really paying too many guys or anything like that. Yeah, you got Stanton, but I want to say Yankees-Dodgers would be a battle of the payrolls, but I guess now in reality it'd be Red Sox-Dodgers. But yeah, the World Series I want to see is Red Sox-Dodgers. Let's go through, I guess, a few World Series matchups that would be fun to watch. I mean, Astros-Brewers would be fun. Obviously, the MLB wouldn't be too happy about that given, I mean, it's two small market teams. Houston isn't necessarily small market, but Milwaukee definitely is. Atlanta, the only way I want to see Atlanta in the World Series is if they're playing the A's, just because if we got Atlanta, we might as well make it completely wacky there. Yankees-Cubs would be fun. Yankees-Dodgers would be fun. I mean, Yankees versus a lot of these teams would be solid. But, yeah, the one I'm rooting for the most is Red Sox-Cubs. But, I mean, there's not really much else going on currently in the MLB. It's just pretty much close divisional races. And looking at the wild card race, let's take a look at the updated standings actually currently in the MLB. I mean, the Red Sox are 11.5 games up. We talked about that. The Indians clinched their division over the weekend. Houston is 4.5 up on the A's. I feel pretty comfortable saying the A's will not be catching up to the Astros. NL East, the Braves are 6.5 games up on the Phillies. I think we can go ahead and write that off there. Cubs, 2.5 games up on the Brewers. They're 5.5 up on the Cardinals. The only way anyone ends up overpassing the Cubs in that division is if the Brewers pass them. And then you look at the NL West. I mean, it's a two-team race, I'd say, between the Dodgers and Rockies, with obviously their 3-game series starting up this weekend, and the Rockies being a half game up. So we'll see what ends up happening. And as far as the AL wildcard, you got the Yankees currently up 1.5 games up on the A's. And as far as the NL goes, Brewers 3 games up on the Cardinals for that top spot. Cardinals and Dodgers currently tied for that second spot with the same winning percentage and all. But like I said, I got the Brewers and Cardinals who end up finishing as the 2 wild card teams in the NL. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Today I recapped these scores in the MLB over the weekend, talked AL East, talked NL West, and then for this segment talked about a couple of other different topics in baseball. So thanks for listening to the GSMC Baseball Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back on Friday, so stay tuned, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.